Welcome to Espresso Jams, short, concentrated, delicious conversations about business, life, and more. And now, here's your host, Joe Matz.
Hello, this is Joe Matz with Espresso Jams, and I am here with Ron Buck, hailing from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Ron is the regional director for Murphy Business Sales, and we got talking the other day about how to structure deals in the age of a pandemic. So, with that, I'd like to introduce Ron and maybe say a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll jump right into it.
Thanks, Joe. My name is Ron Buck. I'm the Regional Director for Murphy Business Sales. Murphy is one of the largest business brokerage and lower middle market firms here in North America. We have about 240 professionals throughout the US and Canada, and our focus is on helping small business and lower middle market owners sell their company when it comes time.
Okay, great. And so we know things are a little bit different this year than they were last year at this time. How are you structuring the deals, maybe for businesses that aren't performing at the level they were performing in 2019?
It's a great question. Something that we are working through. Sellers and buyers need to be flexible to pull off a transaction during this time, particularly when the company is still recovering in their revenue. And what we've done is we've recognized that sellers want the value for the company, not what it's worth just now immediately during the pandemic, but the value that they've built up over 5, 10, 20 years. So we look at the value of the company as it was at the end of 2019, and that becomes our aspirational value. And then we look at the value that the company can support today in terms of debt service and paying fixed costs. And from the buyer's perspective, that's the value that they've got to focus on because they can't pay the full 2019 value because they've got to cover fixed costs, variable costs, and again, that debt service. So we set up sort of two prices, a aspirational value and a current value that the company can support. So for example, let's say the company can support, or in 2019 was worth $1 million. But today, based on where they're at on their recovery of revenue, let's say over the last 3 months, you look at it and the company can really only support about $700,000. So those become our two prices. The aspirational value of $1 million, but what we can support paying today is $700,000. And that really answers both concerns. The seller, I really want to get value for the full value of my company, not just the value during a once in a lifetime pandemic, but also from the buyer perspective, I can only pay what the company can support.
So we have we have quite a difference there of $300,000.
Difference.
Yeah.
So you have a $300,000 difference. And so what do we do with that? So we set it aside in a seller finance note. And the seller finance note is on delay, or it sits there dormant until a metric, a milestone is reached that the buyer and the seller agree to. And that could be, for easy purposes, could be revenue. So when the company achieves and recovers to 100% of the revenue they had in 2019, then the seller finance kicks in, the seller starts getting paid, and the seller achieves that full value of what the company is worth at the end of 2019. However, there are going to be cases where the company doesn't get back to where they were within 2 or 3 years. And that's unfortunate, but some industries are going to take longer to recover. In that case, what we do is pick a time frame, 2 years out, 3 years out, whatever fits the company and the scenario, and look at different milestones, different levels of revenue. And so say you set up a table and the company received 95% of the revenue it had in 2019, it would get one value of seller finance. If it received lower, let's say 80%, it would have a lower value of seller finance. So instead of saying maybe that $300,000 that goes into seller finance, now only $200,000 is going to go into the seller finance, and $100,000 of that gets forgiven or taken off the table. And at that point, then the sellers start to pay their seller finance, and hopefully they recovered to the full 100%. But if they didn't, then there's a way to work out between the buyer and seller a reasonable rate that allows the buyer to be responsible financially, but also allows the seller to get as much value as they could have achieved given that it didn't fully recover.
So that sounds like the best of both worlds for the buyer. They can buy a business at a value that the business can support all that it has to support, the financing, any loans, any capital requirements, any salaries that the owner needs to live on at the value and the income of that business today. The seller gets that value right away. Is that right? The 700,000 in our
That's
example.
Right.
And then
That's right. They get the value of where it's at today, but they still have the open option that when and if the business recovers, that they are able to achieve hopefully the full amount. But if not, they get a proportional amount to what the company did was able to recover to.
Okay. And would
That
I be
way, they don't have to take a company right now that they couldn't sell at all.
right? They're able to sell
Because
it.
if it's time to sell, if you need to retire, you have a health issue,
Sure.
you need to have a mechanism to do that.
Sure. Now, would I be correct if I were to say, as in most situations, is it true here, everything is negotiable?
Everything is negotiable, and just realize that you also have a third party in the transaction, which is the lender. So the lender needs to look at all this and make sure that it works out for them too, because their primary concern is, will this loan get paid back?
Right.
And so they're an important component to the calculations as well.
Okay. And I'm sure that's something that you and Murphy Business has expertise in because you've done a number of these, haven't you?
Yes. We work with lenders very closely to help them understand the analysis and help the buyer and seller come up with a plan that works for everybody.
Okay. This sounds almost like like a buyout. No, an earnout is the word I'm thinking of. It's very similar to an earnout, except for maybe that delay factor.
Yeah, so an earnout is sort of a broad term for consideration that will be paid based on a future contingency.
Perfect. And I know that is a lot of information in our short format here. A very nice 20,000 foot view of what an earnout might look like and some of the conditions and what can happen. And there's a lot more subtleties, as I'm sure everyone is aware of. If someone would like to know more, Ron, and get in touch with you about this, how can they get in touch with you?
Easiest way is just to go to my website, which is www.ronbuck, all one word, -Murphy. And we have a team here in the Carolinas of 12 folks, so we'll put you in touch with someone who's close to you, and we can help you, one, value the business of what it was worth, what it's currently worth, and kind of help you through that structuring and helping you, the seller, particularly for the seller, get paid for what your company is worth, assuming that the company is on a path to recovery.
Right.
The
Okay.
same thing if you're looking at buying, we can help a buyer assess what the company they're looking at. We can help them assess, I really want to buy this company. I've got 3 right now. I really want to buy this company, but they're only at 70% of what they were doing last year. How do I buy the company, which the seller wants to sell, but how do I do that in a way that I can financially be responsible and make sure that I cover all the costs that I've got to cover?
Okay. Great information, Ron. I sure appreciate it. Maybe we'll have to get back and do another session. There's so much information.
Yeah, these are this is sort of a new structure. It's evolving. The bankers are on board with this, but it's definitely a complex situation, and flexibility by buyer and seller at this point are sort of key to getting transactions done.
Yeah, of course. Very good. Thank you, and have a good day. Bye now.
You're welcome, Joe. Take care.